On the 1st of December 2018, surveillance cameras captured Grace, the 22-year-old British woman, leaving a pub in Auckland with Jesse, a person she had just met through the Tinder app. The date had started just hours before, but they seemed relaxed and about to head to his place. The pair were later seen entering a nearby hotel, then going up to Jesse's room on the upper floor together. No one knew that these moments were the last time Grace would be seen alive. The next day was her birthday, but communication stopped. She did not answer any messages or calls, and days passed without a trace, as if she had vanished from the face of the earth. Meanwhile, elevator cameras showed Jesse going up and down several times, carrying cleaning tools and a large bag, suspected of having something shocking inside. More dangerously, Jesse, the presumed killer, had already arranged another date. If the police hadn't moved quickly, the danger would have extended to another girl, and perhaps others. 5:37 p.m., Grace had just arrived in New Zealand from England. At that time, Jesse was sitting in a local pub drinking alcohol, with 4 empty bottles on the table in front of him. They chose to meet in a crowded public place, which gave Grace a sense of security in her first meeting with him, but it was a completely false sense. But that feeling of security was completely misleading. Jesse hadn't planned to do anything in public that evening. He was waiting for the moment they would be alone. Grace didn't suspect a thing. She accompanied Jesse to another pub where they stayed for more than an hour, drinking alcohol. Then, at 7:15 p.m., they went to a Mexican pub for more drinks, before moving to a third bar called Bluestone Room at around 8:30. There, Jesse tried to get closer to her, and at 9:04, he shared their first kiss with her. Moments later, Jesse went to the bathroom, and Grace sent her last message to her friends. Everything is going well. She was probably excited to spend the night with someone she actually liked, but she didn't know that he was about to end her life in one of the most horrible ways imaginable. Next morning, Grace's phone began receiving birthday wishes, but all the messages went unanswered. The first worrying sign was at 8 a.m. when Jesse was captured again on the elevator cameras. This time he was alone, and he gave a strange look toward the camera. That night, Jesse had killed Grace using a rope. He then quickly began a desperate attempt to hide the traces of his crime. He knew that another victim was waiting for him. At 8:07 a.m., Jesse had arrived downtown, about to begin one of the most horrific shopping trips. He started at a store on Elliott Street, where he bought a huge bag. He opened it, inspected it, and checked its depth to make sure it would fit Grace's body, which he planned to get rid of. 25 minutes later, he headed to another store to buy cleaning tools, which would be used to remove the traces of the crime from the apartment. Jesse then returned home for a few hours. Then at 10:42 a.m., he went out again and headed to the Apex car rental company. He rented a new vehicle. But what he did after that was truly shocking. While Grace's body was still in the apartment, Jesse went on a new date with another girl he met through a dating app. And since he now had the means to hide one body, it's believed he was planning to kill his second victim on the same day. Upon entering the pub, he was still wearing the same clothes he wore the night before, and perhaps the same clothes he killed Grace in. During the date, he showed a terrifying behavior. He talked to the girl about the best way to hide a body from the police. The date ended quickly, and it's likely her intuition is what saved her life at the last minute. Only days later, she would discover that she had sat with a killer who could have ended her life just as he did with Grace. At At 8:56 p.m., cameras showed Jesse returning to his apartment, carrying a carpet cleaning machine and 2 bottles of cleaner, in an attempt to remove any trace of Grace's presence. He worked for about 30 minutes, cleaning, smudging, hiding. Then, after he felt he was ready for the next step, he appeared again in the elevator, pushing a cart with several bags on it, one of which was the bag he bought that morning. It was very heavy. The reason? Grace's body was inside it. He couldn't get around with this heavy load. That's why he rented the car in advance, and after minutes he started loading the bags and got ready to hide the body in a place he thought was out of sight. The next morning, Jesse bought a shovel, then returned to his apartment to collect some clothes and took them to a laundromat, trying to erase the remaining evidence. After that, he stopped in front of a trash can and threw a huge trash bag in it. He then took the car and gave it a deep clean with special attention to the back part, where the bag hiding the body was. Over the next 2 days, Grace's family and friends were living in a state of escalating anxiety. No communication, no messages, no answer on the phone. On the 5th of December, the family reported her disappearance to the Auckland police. Her father, David, even traveled to New Zealand and made a heartbreaking plea, asking for his daughter to return safely. With the wide media coverage, it is likely that Jesse saw Grace's father's plea, but he did not show any reaction. While Grace's family was sinking in anxiety, the Auckland police were preparing to use new methods to track her last movements. They succeeded in tracking her dating history and discovered that she had met a mysterious man. And by analyzing long hours of surveillance footage, they reached the last person she was seen with. Then they watched him return to his apartment. The police headed to the City Life Hotel where Jesse was staying. He almost escaped from their grasp. He tried to quietly withdraw from the lobby, as if he had nothing to do with it. But the investigators' eyes were not deceived, and they arrested him before he could escape. At that moment, the only smart option for Jesse was to confess, or at least try to claim that what happened was a tragic accident. But he didn't. He sat in the interrogation room, trying to weave a lie without knowing that the police had already seen every step he took that night. At first, he seemed relaxed. Then he began to lie, and claimed that Grace was the one who insisted on meeting him, but the truth was the exact opposite. In the interrogation room, Jesse seemed confused, trying to defend himself with disjointed excuses. He said he wasn't even sure if Grace was real, and talked about the idea of catfishing, where some people use fake pictures to create fake accounts. But this argument didn't convince anyone. The investigator asked him about his movements in the hotel, about his strange direction when he entered the lobby. But Jesse couldn't find a clear answer. The tension in the room escalated, and the investigators began to push him to the edge. Stage, Jesse was not officially detained yet, but the Auckland police were almost certain that he was the main suspect in Grace's disappearance, and the deeper they went, the more new evidence they found to confirm that they were on the right track. Some of this evidence was shocking. The purchase record showed that Jesse used Grace's credit card after the crime. He bought a bag and cleaning products with it, exactly the ones he was seen carrying in the surveillance cameras. Not only that, but he also paid for an additional night at the City Life Hotel using her same card, a night he did not spend with Grace but spent alone in a desperate attempt to cover the traces of his crime. There is also a high possibility that he paid for his next date using the same card. A date. That was almost another tragedy. His spending that extra night was not for rest, but to complete the cleaning, a failed attempt to blur the truth. But the truth was too clear to be hidden. The carpet cleaner, the bags, the trash he got rid of, his movements in front of the cameras. and the conversations on his phone, everything led to only one conclusion: Jesse is the killer. When the police searched Jesse's apartment, they found what could not be denied: traces of blood belonging to Grace. With this evidence, the other evidence joined to close the circle on him: suspicious payments using Grace's credit card, witness testimonies that linked them on the fateful night, mobile phone data that proved they were together, and the details captured in the surveillance footage all painted a clear picture that could not be misinterpreted. In his second meeting with the police on December 7th, Jesse had no room for evasion. He collapsed and confessed. But what came in his confession was no less shocking. Jesse claimed that everything that happened between him and Grace was consensual. He said that Grace asked to have a violent sexual experience together that included restraints or bondage. He claimed that after the relationship, he went to the bathroom, then fell asleep in the shower, and when he woke up, he found her dead. He said he felt scared, confused, and didn't know what to do. He tried to evade and claimed that what happened was a tragic accident that he did not intend, and that he did not believe what happened, and that the shock led him to make confused decisions, including going out to buy cleaning supplies and going to meet another girl as if nothing had happened. This story, which he told with a stutter in front of the investigators, would later turn into one of the strangest lines of defense in court. But the problem was not only in what he said, but in what he didn't say, in the contradictions, in the evasion of answering, and in his continuous attempt to justify what cannot be justified. The accident story did not convince anyone, because its details were flimsy, and because the evidence was too clear to be covered by an improvised story. In the investigation, Jesse continued his rambling story. He said he went down to the ground floor, brought the bag, and put it in the rented car. Then, according to his claim, he dozed off for a moment and woke up at around 5 a.m. He drove the car toward a remote location, dug a hole in the forest, and put the bag in it, then covered it with soil. He didn't stop there. The investigators asked him, "What else did you get rid of?" He answered that he got rid of everything, the clothes and any items that were inside the room at the time of the crime. And when asked about cleaning the car, he pointed out that he washed it in a public place in Henderson using a high-pressure water sprayer. And when asked if Grace had any injuries, his confused response was, "I don't remember. I was in a state of panic." It was clear to the investigators that Jesse was trying to come up with any story to explain his action, even if it seemed flimsy or contradictory. But the surprise was in his line of defense that he later used in court. The media gave this type of defense the name consensual sexual asphyxiation defense. According to this logic, if there was no explicit refusal or request to stop, the perpetrator is not held accountable for premeditated murder, but is treated as an accidental death. But this type of defense, despite its frequent use by the defendant's lawyers, has always been controversial. It is considered, by many, a desperate excuse used by perpetrators to evade responsibility. And, in Grace's case, that was clear: the last attempt to survive. But even if we accept Jesse's story, which the court did not, what he did after Grace's death remains shocking and reveals intentions far beyond just an accidental incident. Since the 1st of December, the day they met, and until the 7th of December, the investigations revealed a disturbing series of actions. The investigators were able to retrieve his internet search history and discovered that he had searched for suitable places to hide bodies. Even more horrifying, he took pictures of Grace's body, both while it was in the room and after he put it in the bag. And a week after her disappearance, on the 9th of December 2018, Grace's body was finally found, buried in the remote Waitakere area outside Auckland. The autopsy revealed that she had been strangled and that there were clear bruises on her arms and chest, indicating that she was forcibly restrained. In New Zealand, there are no different degrees of murder as in some other countries, as the law does not distinguish between first-degree or second-degree murder, but rather considers whether the person committed the murder or not. The only penalty is life imprisonment. In February 2020, Jesse was convicted of killing Grace, and the court completely rejected his story. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum sentence of no less than 17 years without the possibility of parole. But the case did not end there. After his trial, 2 other women filed complaints against him and claimed that he had sexually assaulted them after meeting them through the Tinder app. The authorities verified their statements and decided to bring him to trial again, and he was also convicted in these cases, which added an additional 8 years to his prison sentence, closing the page on a man who exploited technology to commit one of the most heinous crimes New Zealand has ever known. This was the case of Grace Millane. May her soul rest in peace and comfort be with her family. Every life carries a story. Some end in pain, some in silence. This was one of them, but many more remain. Stay with us. Until the next story.